October 24th, 1944. The Formosa Strait. A Japanese convoy commander stares at the surface of the dark water, watching his third ship explode in flames within an hour. He doesn't know where the attack is coming from. He doesn't know how many enemy submarines surround him. What he does know is that somewhere beneath those waves, an American submarine is hunting his fleet like a wolf among sheep. This is the story of USS Tang, the deadliest submarine in United States Navy history. By the time her final patrol ended, she had sunk 33 Japanese ships and left the Imperial Japanese Navy wondering how one American submarine could cause so much devastation. This is the story of Commander Richard O'Kane and his crew of 87 men who became legends of underwater warfare. The USS Tang, SS-306, slid into the water at Mare Island Naval Shipyard in Vallejo, California, on August 17, 1943. She was a Balao-class submarine, 311 feet of American engineering designed for one purpose: to strangle Japan's merchant fleet and starve their war machine. But a submarine is only as good as its commander, and Tang had the best. Commander Richard Hetherington O'Kane was already a legend before he took command of Tang. He'd served as executive officer aboard USS Wahoo under the equally legendary Commander Dudley "Mush" Morton. Together, O'Kane and Morton had pioneered aggressive submarine tactics that revolutionized American undersea warfare. While other submarines played it safe, Wahoo charged into harbors, hunting in shallow water, taking risks that made Pentagon admirals nervous but produced incredible results. O'Kane learned everything from Morton: the art of the approach, the mathematics of the firing solution, the psychology of submarine combat. When Wahoo went down with all hands in October 1943, O'Kane carried his mentor's aggressive philosophy forward. He would make Tang the most feared submarine in the Pacific. Tang's crew knew they had someone special in command. O'Kane wasn't reckless, he was calculated. Every approach was planned with precision. Every torpedo shot was set up with mathematical accuracy. He trained his crew relentlessly, running drill after drill until loading torpedoes and diving became muscle memory. O'Kane demanded excellence, and his crew delivered it. The submarine herself was a marvel of technology. 10 torpedo tubes, 6 forward, 4 aft, 24 Mark 18, electric torpedoes that left no wake for the enemy to trace, diesel engines that could push her to 20 knots on the surface, electric motors for silent running underwater, radar that could detect enemy ships in total darkness. Tang was a hunter built for war. Tang departed Pearl Harbor on January 22nd, 1944, for her first war patrol. O'Kane took her to the Caroline Islands, deep into Japanese-controlled waters. Most commanders would spend weeks positioning, waiting for the perfect target. O'Kane went hunting immediately. On February 17th, Tang found a Japanese cargo ship. O'Kane maneuvered Tang into attack position with a textbook precision. 3 torpedoes launched, 2 hits. The cargo ship went down in 4 minutes. Tang's first kill. But O'Kane wasn't satisfied with one ship. Over the next 3 weeks, Tang stalked the shipping lanes like a predator. A tanker here, a transport there. Each attack was executed with clinical efficiency. By the time Tang returned to Pearl Harbor on March 15th, she had sunk 5 Japanese ships totaling over 20,000 tons. The Navy brass took notice. 5 ships on a maiden patrol was exceptional. But O'Kane was just getting started. Tang's second patrol targeted the Palau Islands and the Truk Lagoon, the most heavily defended Japanese naval base in the Pacific. O'Kane took Tang straight into the lion's den. Most commanders avoided Truk. O'Kane headed directly for it. On April 26th, Tang intercepted a heavily escorted convoy heading for Truk. 4 cargo ships, two tankers, and three destroyer escorts. The destroyers were equipped with sonar and depth charges, a submarine's worst nightmare. O'Kane studied the convoy's formation, calculating angles and speeds in his head. Then he did something audacious. He took Tang to the surface, in daylight, with three enemy destroyers less than 5 miles away. His executive officer thought he'd lost his mind, but O'Kane had done the math. On the surface, Tang could outrun the convoy, get ahead of it, and set up an attack from the front where the destroyers couldn't protect the cargo ships. It was brilliant and insane in equal measure. Tang raced ahead on her diesel engines, then crash-dived directly in the convoy's path. O'Kane waited until the lead cargo ship was 600 yards away. "Fire 1, fire 2, fire 3. 3 torpedoes leaped from Tang's bow tubes. The crew counted the seconds. 45 seconds for the torpedoes to reach their target. The first torpedo hit the cargo ship below the waterline. The explosion lifted the ship's bow out of the water. The second torpedo hit amidships, breaking her keel. The third hit the second cargo ship before the first one had even started sinking. 2 ships destroyed in less than 2 minutes. The destroyers went berserk, charging toward Tang's last known position. O'Kane took Tang deep, 400 feet, and went silent. The crew shut down every non-essential system. Men held their breath as the destroyers passed overhead. Then came the depth charges. Boom, boom, boom. The explosions hammered Tang's hull like giant fists. Light bulbs shattered. Cork insulation rained down from the overhead. A pipe joint cracked, spraying seawater. But Tang's hull held. O'Kane kept her deep and quiet for 6 hours until the destroyers gave up searching. When Tang finally surfaced that night, O'Kane immediately radioed the location of the remaining convoy ships to other American submarines in the area. That was O'Kane's style. He wasn't hunting for personal glory. He was hunting to win the war. By the time Tang returned from her second patrol, she'd sunk another 10 ships, 15 ships in 2 patrols. The Navy awarded O'Kane the Navy Cross, but he barely attended the ceremony. He was already planning the third patrol. Tang's third war patrol launched on June 8, 1944. O'Kane took her to the Yellow Sea and the East China Sea, the shipping routes between Japan and mainland Asia. These waters were shallow, heavily mined, and constantly patrolled by Japanese aircraft and anti-submarine vessels. It was the most dangerous submarine hunting ground in the Pacific. O'Kane didn't care. That's where the targets were. For 6 weeks, Tang prowled the Chinese coast like a ghost. O'Kane had perfected a tactic that terrified Japanese convoy commanders: night surface attacks. Tang would track a convoy during the day, staying submerged and out of sight. Then, after sunset, O'Kane would surface Tang and chase the convoy down at high speed. In the darkness, Tang's low silhouette was almost invisible, but her radar could track every enemy ship with precision. On the night of June 24th, Tang intercepted a 6-ship convoy off the coast of China. O'Kane brought Tang in at flank speed, 20 knots, with all 6 bow tubes loaded. He positioned Tang between 2 cargo ships, so close the crew could hear Japanese sailors shouting on deck. At 800 yards, O'Kane gave the order. "Fire 1 through 6, full salvo." 6 torpedoes erupted from Tang's bow in rapid succession. The crew didn't even wait to see the hits. O'Kane was already swinging Tang around to bring the aft tubes to bear. The first explosion came 15 seconds later, then another, and another. 4 of the 6 torpedoes found targets. 2 ships were sinking before the convoy even realized they were under attack. But O'Kane wasn't done. He spun Tang and fired 3 more torpedoes from the aft tubes at the remaining ships. 2 more hits. In less than 5 minutes, Tang had sunk 4 ships and crippled a 5th. The 6th ship fled at maximum speed. O'Kane let it go. He was out of torpedoes. Tang radioed Pearl Harbor for a resupply, met a submarine tender at Midway Island, reloaded with 24 fresh torpedoes, and headed back to the same hunting grounds. The Japanese hadn't even finished recovering bodies from the last attack. On July 6th, Tang found another convoy, 5 cargo ships, 2 tankers, 3 escorts. O'Kane executed another night surface attack. This time he got even closer, 500 yards. At that range, his torpedoes couldn't miss. He sank 3 ships in the opening salvo, then stayed on the surface, trading fire, with the escorts while his crew reloaded the torpedo tubes. The escort's gunfire was wild and inaccurate in the darkness. Tang's torpedoes were not. 2 more ships went down. By the time Tang headed for Pearl Harbor on July 30th, she had sunk 16 ships in a single patrol, more than most submarines sank in their entire service life. It was the most successful submarine patrol in U.S. Navy history. O'Kane received a second Navy Cross. His crew received a Presidential Unit citation. And Tang received a reputation that made Japanese merchant captains refuse to sail without heavy destroyer escorts. September 24th, 1944, Tang departed Pearl Harbor for her 5th war patrol. O'Kane's orders were to hunt in the Formosa Strait between Taiwan and mainland China. Japanese convoys were still trying to move oil, rubber, and raw materials from Southeast Asia to the home islands. Tang's job was to stop them. By now, Tang had sunk 31 confirmed ships. O'Kane and his crew had become the most successful submarine team in the Pacific. But they had no intention of resting on their laurels. They were going back to finish the job. Tang reached her patrol area in early October. For 2 weeks, she prowled the shipping lanes, but the hunting was sparse. The Japanese had learned to route convoys away from known American submarine positions. O'Kane had to work harder to find targets. On October 10th, Tang's radar picked up a large convoy moving south along the Chinese coast. O'Kane tracked it through the afternoon, waiting for nightfall. When darkness came, he took Tang to the surface and moved in. This convoy was different. It was massive. 3 tankers, 7 cargo ships, and 4 destroyer escorts. The ships were sailing in a tight defensive formation, designed specifically to counter submarine attacks. The destroyers were actively pinging with sonar, searching for submarines. O'Kane studied the formation for hours, looking for a weakness. Finally, he found it. The convoy was sailing close to the coast, trying to use shallow water to protect their flank. But O'Kane realized that if he took Tang between the convoy and the shoreline, into water barely deep enough for Tang to maneuver, he could attack from the one direction the destroyers weren't watching. It was incredibly risky. If Tang had to crash dive, there wasn't enough water. If a destroyer spotted them, Tang had nowhere to run. But the entire war was about taking calculated risks. O'Kane took Tang in. At midnight on October 11th, Tang surfaced less than 1,000 yards from the convoy, with the Chinese coast only 2 miles away. O'Kane launched a full spread of torpedoes. The night lit up with explosions. 2 tankers erupted in flames. A cargo ship broke in half. The destroyers scrambled to respond, but by the time they realized where the attack came from, Tang had already slipped back into deeper water. Over the next 2 days, Tang stalked the same convoy, hitting them again and again. Every night, O'Kane would close in and launch torpedoes. Every morning, Tang would slip away before the Japanese could organize a counterattack. By October 13th, Tang had sunk 2 more ships from that convoy. Then, on October the 23rd, Tang's radar detected another major convoy, 11 ships heading south through the Formosa Strait. O'Kane had 8 torpedoes left. He intended to use them all. October 24th, 1944, just after midnight. Tang surfaced 2 miles from the Japanese convoy. O'Kane could see the ships silhouetted against the moonlight. 7 cargo ships, 2 tankers, and 2 destroyer escorts. This would be Tang's final attack. After this, she would head home. O'Kane maneuvered Tang into position with the precision of a surgeon. He wanted to fire his remaining 8 torpedoes in 2 salvos, 4 forward, 4 aft, and sink as many ships as possible before the destroyers could respond. At 2 a.m., Tang was in position. O'Kane gave the order. Fire 1, fire 2, fire 3, fire 4. 4 Mark 18 electric torpedoes launched from Tang's bow tubes. O'Kane immediately began swinging Tang around to bring the aft tubes to bear. The crew counted down the seconds until impact. The first torpedo hit a cargo ship amidships. The explosion was catastrophic. The ship had been carrying ammunition. The blast lit up the night like daylight and sent a mushroom cloud 500 feet into the air. The second and third torpedoes hit 2 more cargo ships. Both began sinking immediately. O'Kane completed Tang's turn. Fire 5, fire 6, fire 7. 3 more torpedoes away, 2 hits on cargo ships. The convoy was in complete chaos now. Ships were turning in random directions, trying to escape. The destroyer escorts were charging toward Tang's position, but they were disorganized and confused. O'Kane had 1 torpedo left. 1 last shot. He spotted a large tanker trying to break away from the convoy. At 2:30 a.m., O'Kane made his final firing calculation. Fire 8. The last torpedo launched from Tang's aft torpedo tube. The crew watched its phosphorescent wake streak toward the tanker. Everyone was already celebrating. 7 hits out of 7 shots. This last one was just the exclamation point on a perfect attack. But something was wrong. Chief Torpedoman's mate, William Leibold, was the first to see it. Captain, the torpedo's running in a circle. The Mark 18 torpedo had malfunctioned. Instead of running straight, it had veered hard to the left immediately after launch. Now it was curving back toward Tang in a deadly arc. O'Kane didn't hesitate. All ahead flank! Right full rudder! Tang's diesel engines roared to life. The submarine surged forward, turning hard to starboard, trying to outrun her own torpedo. For 20 seconds, it looked like they might make it. Tang was accelerating, pulling away from the curved wake of the torpedo, but the torpedo was faster. At 2:32 a.m. on October the 25th, 1944, Tang's own torpedo struck her in the stern. The explosion tore off Tang's entire aft section. The submarine began sinking immediately. O'Kane was on the bridge when the torpedo hit. The explosion threw him into the water. Men who had been on deck were blown into the sea. Below decks, the crew felt the world turn upside down as Tang's stern section flooded in seconds. In the forward torpedo room, the crew fought to close the watertight doors as seawater roared through the submarine. In the engine room, men were trapped as Tang's stern section broke apart. In the control room, Lieutenant Commander Murray Frazee organized the surviving crew members, knowing Tang was going down. Tang sank in less than a minute. She came to rest on the bottom of the Formosa Strait at a depth of 180 feet. 30 men were still alive inside the sunken submarine. Inside the sunken Tang, the surviving crew faced a nightmare scenario. The submarine was flooded from the stern all the way to the control room. They were trapped in the forward torpedo room and the forward battery compartment. The air was rapidly becoming toxic with carbon dioxide. The temperature was rising from the seawater flooding the battery compartments, creating chlorine gas. They had one option: the Momsen lung. The Momsen lung was an early escape breathing device, essentially a rubber bag with a mouthpiece and a canister of chemicals to absorb carbon dioxide. In theory, a submariner could strap on a Momsen lung, flood the compartment he was in, open the hatch, and float to the surface from depths up to 200 feet. In theory. In reality, the Momsen lung had never been successfully used in combat conditions. The escape required flooding a compartment with seawater while equalized with outside pressure, then swimming up through 180 feet of water in complete darkness while breathing through a device that barely worked. Men would face nitrogen narcosis, oxygen toxicity, and the bends. Most would die trying, but staying inside Tang meant dying for certain. Lieutenant Commander Frazee organized the escape attempt. They would flood the forward torpedo room slowly, equalizing pressure with the sea outside. When pressure was equalized, they would open the forward escape trunk hatch. Men would go up one at a time. The first group of 4 men entered the escape trunk at 4 a.m. They waited while seawater flooded the small chamber, the pressure building until their ears felt like they would burst. When the pressure gauge read equal, they opened the hatch. The first man pushed himself up and out, kicked toward the surface, and was never seen again. The second man made it. The third man's Momsen lung failed at 50 feet. He drowned. The fourth man made it. This continued for hours. 8 men successfully escaped. 5 died trying. The rest remained inside Tang, knowing their chances of survival decreased with every passing minute as the air quality deteriorated. By 8 a.m., only 13 men remained alive inside Tang. The air was nearly unbreathable. Men were passing out from carbon dioxide poisoning. They had to make the attempt now or die in the submarine. The final group entered the escape trunk. Among them was Lieutenant Commander Frazee. He went last, staying until every man who could be saved had been sent up. When his turn came, the air in Tang was so toxic that men were barely conscious. Frazee entered the escape trunk, flooded it, opened the hatch, and kicked for the surface. He made it halfway before his Momsen lung failed. He drowned at 90 feet. On the surface, Commander O'Kane and 8 other survivors were floating in the Formosa Strait. The sun was coming up. Japanese destroyer escorts were circling, looking for survivors. O'Kane and his men could see the Japanese ships clearly. They knew capture was inevitable. A Japanese destroyer picked them up at 9 a.m. 9 men, 9 survivors, out of a crew of 87. The Japanese transported them to a prison camp in Formosa, where they spent the next 10 months enduring interrogation, starvation rations, and brutal treatment. O'Kane never revealed any information about American submarine tactics or operations. Despite torture, despite threats, despite watching his men suffer, Richard O'Kane gave the Japanese nothing. When American forces liberated the prison camp in September 1945, O'Kane and his 8 surviving crew members weighed less than 100 pounds each. They were barely alive, but they had survived. The U.S. Navy pieced together Tang's final patrol from O'Kane's reports, from the testimony of the survivors, and from Japanese records captured after the war. The full scope of Tang's achievements became clear. In 5 war patrols spanning less than 1 year, USS Tang had sunk 33 Japanese ships, totaling over 116,000 tons. She had damaged 4 more. She had single-handedly disrupted Japanese supply lines, destroyed critical shipments of oil and raw materials, and forced the Japanese Navy to divert dozens of destroyers and aircraft to anti-submarine patrol duty. 33 ships, more than any other American submarine in World War II. Commander Richard O'Kane received the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration, for his actions during Tang's final patrol. The citation noted his conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity and his extraordinary heroism in the face of the enemy. O'Kane also received 3 Navy Crosses, making him one of the most decorated naval officers in American history. But O'Kane never talked about the medals. He talked about his crew, 78 men who went down with Tang, men who died doing their duty, men who faced death with courage and professionalism. The 8 survivors, Floyd Caverly, Hayes Trucka, Lawrence Savadkin, Clay Decker, Jesse De Silva, William Leibold, Pete Narawansky, and Hank Flanagan, all received the Silver Star for their actions during Tang's final patrol and their survival of the escape. They remained friends for the rest of their lives, gathering annually to remember Tang and the men who didn't come home. The U.S. Navy never forgot Tang. When the nuclear submarine program began in the 1950s, one of the first submarines built was named USS Tang, SS-563. She served with distinction for 30 years. When she was decommissioned, the Navy built another Tang, SS-805, continuing the legacy. Today, USS Tang's battle flag is on display at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. Her Presidential Unit citation hangs in the Submarine Force Museum in Groton, Connecticut. And every year, submariners gather to remember Tang and her crew, the men who made her the deadliest submarine in American naval history. The story of USS Tang is more than just numbers and tonnage sunk. It's a story about courage, about professionalism, about men who volunteered for the most dangerous duty in the Navy and executed it with precision and dedication. It's a story about a commander who led from the front, who took risks but never gambled with his crew's lives unnecessarily, who proved that aggressive tactics combined with technical excellence could win wars. 33 ships, 1 submarine. 87 men who went to war knowing the odds were against them and fought anyway. The Japanese were stunned. The U.S. Navy was proud. And history remembers. If you want to join us on this mission to keep these incredible stories alive, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week we bring you the untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and the moments that changed history. These aren't just stories. They're the legacy of real people who did extraordinary things. And finally, we have one question we always ask: where are you watching from? Our community stretches across the entire globe, from the United States to the United Kingdom, from Canada to Australia, from the Philippines to Poland. You're not just a viewer. You're part of a community keeping these memories alive. Please drop a comment and let us know your city or state. Tell us if someone in your family served in the submarine service, or if you've ever visited the Submarine Force Museum in Groton, Connecticut, where Tang's legacy lives on. Did your grandfather serve in the Pacific? Did your uncle serve on a submarine? Share your connection to this history. These stories matter because the people who lived them mattered. Commander Richard O'Kane. The 87 men of USS Tang. The thousands of submariners who served in the silent service during World War II. 52 American submarines were lost during the war. Over 3,500 submariners never came home. We remember them, we honor them, and we make sure their stories are never forgotten. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering. And thank you for being part of this community. Fair winds and following seas.